I just really wanted him to be authentic, honestly. I just wanted him to feel real. I wanted him, because, like, look, we all know when something is put on. We all know. We love film, we love TV, and we know. You just know. And I just didn't want in any of these characters, even with Alfred in Atlanta, I was like, I know him. You know what I mean? I know who this dude is. My best friend. He's my best friend. Like, I know who this is. And I just always wanted these characters to truly feel like somebody you know. And that means that they must sound that way. They must move that way. Even more importantly, they must laugh that way. They must be joyous that way. I want them to always be someone that you, at the end of the day, are like, is he okay?
I want to welcome to the stage our special guest, Mr. Brian Tyree Henry.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
This is such a lovely little film and such an incredible performance from both you and Jennifer Lawrence. But I guess my first question will just start at the beginning. I mean, what attracted you to this part and this project?
That's a great question. There are a few things that attracted me, first and foremost being that of Jennifer Lawrence. Because, I wasn't going to turn that down. I was like, I think she's an incredible actress. I think that her career is incredible, and I really wanted to get a chance to work with someone who has reached such heights like that, who started pretty much an independent film, and, to watch her kind of come back to her roots, I guess, to say with this was very interesting to me. The second was Lila. Lila and I go back almost 20 years, which is crazy. I know I don't look like I have 20 years in me. Thank you. But we started at Yale together. She was an undergrad. I was in grad. She would bust into our play rehearsals when she wasn't supposed to be there. And we would talk about art and plays and all kinds of things. And then we came here to New York. I came here first after I graduated and did theater here. And she came and did the same. And we would literally scream at each other in the street about when we were going to work together. Why is it that we haven't worked together? What is going on? And then I get a call from her saying that she's doing her first feature film. And I was like, well, count me in. Anything that you're doing, I want to be a part of. Another part was the script. Honestly, the character of James was somebody that I thought I really truly hadn't seen before. I hadn't seen a man like this who kind of was just someone living through guilt and living through grief, but also trying to carry on an ordinary life and also trying to figure out what the other side of that looks like. Honestly, someone who was just looking for a connection, I believe. And I feel like it reflected a lot of things that I was going through in my own personal life, my own personal grief, my own personal loss. And I really wanted to explore what that was. Please forgive me for sweating. I'm like, just so nervous because I'm like, oh, everyone's here watching. So please bear with me. I'm just a warm-blooded person. But yeah, it was truly that. I mean, there was something about him that just called to me. I also felt like he needed to be seen by you all. I felt like he was a character that just needed to be seen, to see this, it's easy to see this big, broad black man that works, in an auto mechanic shop and seems like he has everything together, but truly in the inside, he is just really looking for someone to truly see him, to truly care about him, to truly give him a reason to lay his burdens down. And I felt like that was the biggest attraction for me to do James.
One of the things I discovered while researching it, and I was really shocked to learn this, is you guys actually started shooting this film before the pandemic hit, and then you had to basically stop.
Yeah, and it was crazy, you guys. So let's go on a journey. So in 2019, we started this movie in the middle of the summer in New Orleans, which in a word is hot. And it began as a journey of following Jen's character, Lindsay, her coming back from war, her after leaving a home that she had kind of, in a word, abandoned. She ran away. She wanted to become a person of service, and then she suffers this huge injury, and then we pick up seeing her trying to piece together her life and piece together this home that she kind of left. And it really was about the people that she was meeting along the way, being present in a way, but not connecting in a way. It really was like you were kind of going through Lindsay's journey of her trying to piece together some life, but there was never a true connection sticking for her. And then when Jen and I started playing a bit together in scenes, we realized that, oh, what if the connection that sticks is with me? What if you have these two people who honestly suffer from the same kind of torment of being disabled, because they're both labeled disabled in their own way. They're both dealing with loss in their own way. What if the connection was right under our noses all along, where it was the two of us? We didn't want it to be anything romantic. We didn't want it to be anything that was too heavy. We just wanted it to be something that could exist, the possibility of something existing, and just the possibility of something. So 2020 happens, which I'm sure everyone in here went through. And what we discovered with our relationships in 2020 was that there was this thing happening called a trauma bond, right? Like, we started making these connections after the harsh language of 2020 being like lockdown, shelter in place, don't, isolate yourself. We started creating these trauma bonds with people that, which in essence for the time were okay, because it's like, well, I see your trauma, you see mine. Oh my God, that's great. But then we don't think about what's on the other side. And then you realize you've created a relationship completely submerged in trauma. And so we realized that me and Jen were doing that. We had created this trauma bond, and we really wanted to get on the other side of that. And then this light bulb went off in with her and Lila and I, that was like, we can't have it just be that. There's something else that has to come from this relationship. And so we went back to the drawing board, which involved me texting Jen like a mad person, being like, I'm coming over, fuck this isolation. I'm sitting in your garden and we're gonna figure this out. And she let me. And we just really sat down and just like talked about it. And Lila was very open to it. And so when we went back in 2021, back to New Orleans, post-pandemic, and I have to just say this, New Orleans, I don't know if anyone in here is from New Orleans, but that city is truly, I can't even put it in a word, just one of the most tenacious cities I've ever seen. It is a city that knows loss to its core. It has gone through every different kind of battle it can go through, but yet there is this essence of wanting to always rebuild itself. People who are from New Orleans are not fucking leaving New Orleans because it's their home. It's especially Black people from New Orleans. There is just something about the essence of that. And so going back after this pandemic to this place, we were like, well, we have to absolutely lay our burdens down here. There's just something about it. And so we built again, and we, reprogrammed it in our own way, just to show a deeper rooted connection of who Lindsay is via James.
And that's actually one of the things I find that the film is so astute about trauma and grief. It's not like, it makes it clear that it's a process. I mean, we have scenes where these characters reveal aspects of their stories, but it's never like just a door you open and then you get to the other side. It's a process, because we find out that they're holding back things, and later on we find out more. And I find that, very often, films about trauma wind up being about, like a switch is turned on and you're resolved and you're on the other side. What I love about this movie is it makes it clear, this is a thing that you're on. This is a process. This is a road. It's not, it's not a switch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a big reason why we called it Causeway. So for those who don't know, in Louisiana, there is a stretch of road called the Causeway, which is like 29 miles or so, 2 lanes, one direction, opposite directions or whatever. And there are no exits. So once you start your journey over the Causeway, you have to get to the other side. And what I realized for James was that he endured this traumatic loss of a car accident on the Causeway. So there are a few things that have to be unpacked for that. So if he had a car accident on the Causeway, that means that both traffic from both ends were stopped. There was a backup. There was a rescue that had to happen. And also that means that anyone who's anyone knew that accident happened. And it was over a body of water, so I find my journey with James to have been in this weird place of having to connect to a person that made a choice to stay in his grief and to stay there from a place of guilt and never really try to find a way to heal through it. Also, playing an amputee was very interesting because what I discovered with amputees, everyone's like, well, did you follow amputees around? Did you? I was like, I would never want to follow amputees around. That would be incredibly awkward. But I did observe them because I just didn't want to interact with them because the whole point is that they want to, for lack of a better word, be ordinary. They want to live their lives the regular way. Like, and often when you interact with people, something becomes performative, I find. We can't help it. We're human. If I pull my phone out right now, y'all would pose. You know what I mean? But like, I just wanted to really figure out what it was for him to just wake up and just deal with that. And so you also meet him in the movie, for most part, he seems like an ordinary guy. But then I was like, so he suffered this car accident. He's working at a car shop. Like, what is going? So I tried. Most of my stuff was trying not to judge him because part of me was like, well, what? Get some help. Like, talk to somebody. What is going on? Like, why do we do this thing? Why do we do this? And I really felt like if I took this on, it would help me understand why I do the things I do, because grief often feels like a disability sometimes. It often feels like it needs the kind of attention that people who are disabled get sometimes. It feels like it's completely paralyzing. There's another thing with amputees called the phantom limb. I don't know if you all have heard of that, but where it's this thing where they feel like their limb is still there, that they can feel it tingle, they can feel it itch, they can feel it cramp. And that feels like grief as well. Like, grief often feels like a phantom limb of this thing of having something there that all of a sudden just isn't there anymore. And I found that happening with me a lot. I lost my mother 6 years ago in a car accident, which is another reason I had to figure this out with this movie, because I don't look a gift horse in the mouth sometimes, like I have to believe that this came to me at a point where I had to confront that thing. And I find myself calling her and it's been 6 years and I'm like, what am I doing? Or I find myself, having these conversations. But I think that is a big part that we wanted to show the audience, is that grief is ever present. Grief is a part of you, but it does not have to become you. There is a way to kind of like make a connection and be seen past your grief. I found that for me, I thought I was like a walking grief buffet for a long time. I felt like if I came out of the bathroom washing my hands, someone would be like, oh, he is sad. Like there's something. And I'm like, I didn't want that, but you don't have control. And what I really wanted for the most part was just for people to check in and see if I was okay. It's strangers, your dogs, I don't know. Like, I would be like, anybody, just say, hey, are you okay? And I feel like that was in essence where James was coming from, because here we are. We don't know how long it's been since that accident, but we know that he's found a way to carry on. And I feel like with Lindsay, it was the first time that he wasn't his accident. He wasn't his loss. There was a spring that happened where they could be friends for who they were. They weren't just their burdens anymore.
We were talking earlier about how understated the performances are, and the film in general. I mean, the type of things that happen in this film and that people talk about, the performances could be big. I mean, it could be broad, and that might have worked as well. But I love how delicate the film is and how delicate the performances are. And you talked about how you and Jen obviously and Lila worked on it. You had a ton of time to work on it. But is that something that was on the page or in the conception of the film initially, or was that something that you sort of developed together?
I think the big part of the work that came is we had to do a lot of work on ourselves, which, in film, it's real easy to come to set and, you get a preliminary and somebody's putting makeup on you and then you're on the phone and then you do your scene. This one wouldn't let us do that. Like, there was really nowhere to hide, I think, with this movie for both of us. And that was a great feeling. I think Lila has this amazing ability because she is based in New York theater. I will go to my grave with this. We can fight outside after if you don't like it. But like, there is something about theater that creates this sense of collaboration. There is no way that one person is that bigger than the show. Like, we come up here on this stage, that curtain goes up, and it's from beginning to end. Are you with me or not? You know, and especially when it comes to direction, Lila comes from this place of truly wanting to be a collaborator. She would do this thing. She'll kill me if I tell you. But I call it the Lila Squat. Okay, and so let me explain this. So the Lila Squat is basically if we're in a scene together, me and you, and she yells cut, and let's say we're having a discussion, and she can see that we're trying to figure it out. I'll turn, and she's like right there, and I'm like, oh God, like how did like what? But the reason she does that is because of the intimacy of it. Is she wants to be one-on-one with her actor and really talk about what it is that we are trying to discover, what it is that we need to find a through line to. I call it the sinew. You know how the sinew connects the bone, the muscle to the bone? She wants to know what that is, and so do we. But it's just oftentimes we don't feel like we have the space as actors to ask those questions. You know, sometimes as actors we feel like, well, stand on your mark and say what you're supposed to say and then come up with what you should have done. No, like she wants to live in it. She doesn't care how long the shots take. She doesn't care. But if there's no connectivity between us and the scene, then what's the point of us moving on? And so there are a few scenes that were very challenging for me in particular, just because I didn't want it to be this thing of me muscling anything. I didn't want it to be, I was like, I'm okay with sitting in the uncomfortability of the silence of what's said without saying a word. I feel like that gives the audience a chance to go along with us rather than jumping ahead of us or being behind us. You're actually kind of watching things unfold as we are going through them. And one scene in particular was that we went back to shoot was the scene at my home. Because I had this notion, I didn't want James to be a person that just appeared in service to Lindsay. We know what those tropes look like. We know what those movies are, and I didn't want that. And neither did Jen, and neither did Lila. And I said to them, I was like, well, here we have this man who was born and raised in New Orleans who suffered this tragic loss in New Orleans and chose to stay here. Where does he live? I was like, where does he live? Are we to believe that in this friendship there was never an offer for Lindsay to come home, you know, or to see his home? But also, when's the last time he invited someone to this home? When's the last time he ever wanted anyone to see where he lived? And I flashed to when I was a kid, right? Because we're family. Let's talk. I lived with my father, and me and my father's relationship is very estranged. And so I would go to school and just live it up as if though everything was fine. Like, and my friends, when I graduated high school, they were like, so, do you have a dad? And I was like, yeah, I have a dad. Well, we've never been to your house. I was like, he's there. It's fine. He's there. And they're like, can we come over? I was like, why? Your house is, what are you talking about? And I really, as I say it now, I was like, man, what a crazy, but that was important because when you invite somebody into your home, that's it. Like, they now see exactly how you live. There's a risk when you let somebody into your home and or whatever you consider home to be, like, because then we see exactly who you are. It's like giving somebody the passcode to your phone, you know, like it's really that kind of intimate. And so when we did this scene, if you notice, it's mostly silent at the beginning because James has gotten drunk and he's trusted somebody to drive his car. But then you see that the steps are broken, you know, for this man who has lost his leg, the steps are broken. There's no easy access to get into his home. Furniture hasn't been moved to make it easy. Crutches and canes are gathering dust in the corner. There are no pictures of anyone on his walls. This long hallway of silence. And I remember, I'm getting emotional about it. I remember thinking, I was like, God, he really needs somebody. God, he really needs somebody. And the fact that he's even in there, inebriated to the gill, even lets you know that that's how he has to live in here. And so there has to be something about her to give him an opportunity to release the space, which you then see in the scene when he asks, move in. The possibility of somebody moving in, the possibility of actually having something to wake up for and to. And it cracked me wide open. I was just like, oh, like he's probably never said this to anybody. He probably never thought that anybody would want to. And I think that the movie does that. You see these moments of release within each character of like letting a little bit chip away as you go along, like a new discovery almost every time they meet. It's always like it's like a new first meeting every time because they're moving in a way where they're releasing things every time they meet each other.
When you talked about how collaborative everything was, so you guys decide to shoot a scene at his house. Do you get input into what should be there? Do you get to help design
That's why I
it?
love Lila. Yeah, she even gave me input on what neighborhood I wanted him to be in. And I was like, well, let's get in the car and drive around. Let's talk to people. Where do we think, even what the car model looks like, it's really cool because the picture of the child on the dashboard is my great nephew. She was like, is there anyone that you want to? I was like, well, yeah. Because I just knew it would serve in a certain way. This kind of reminder. I love this little man. His name is Ethan. He's amazing, and he is geeking out that he's in it. I'm like, you're too young to watch it though, so just wait. But yeah, we had those kind of inputs about that. Everything was pretty incredibly collaborative. Even from the ring that James wears, the necklace he wears, like little things, we definitely all had input in for sure.
And you were talking earlier about how not every set is the same, obviously, and you've done so many different kinds of projects. You've done TV series, you've done Marvel movies, you've done Godzilla versus Kong, you've done Bullet Train, you've done indies, you've done theater. Earlier this year you were in I don't know if folks saw it. It was a little movie called The Outside Story, which you were terrific in, but the budget for that makes Causeway look like Godzilla versus Kong. It was a tiny movie.
Very tiny.
And I guess what I'm curious about is when you start a project, is there a period of adjustment when you kind of gauge the scale of it and how much freedom and space you will have?
No. In a word, no. I don't know. The thing about when you do these movies, what I realized with me is that I tended to hold on to these men. And by that, I mean, with every character, I took them home and I didn't really give them a chance to be released, which is a trap for us, especially as actors, because our whole job is to be kind of these channels and empaths to tell the story of a person that doesn't exist. And then you build up these worlds for them and you start to carry their grief and you start to carry their anguish. And then you're going home stirring mac and cheese and you're crying uncontrollably, wondering why. And it's just like, what is this? I know it's shells and cheese, but I'm so sad. And you just want to, you want to figure out there has to be a place of surrender in order to do it. And surrender is not easy. It's surrender. It's truly the most vulnerable we as human beings are when we surrender to something. It's not, being like we've been defeated, but it's really just putting your arms down and giving in to whatever it is. And so I find for me, with every character I pick, or that picks me, I know, crunchy granola. I know, I heard it when I said it, and I was like, that is crunchy. But it's true. I really don't seek for anything. I just let it kind of find me, which also has a bit of a challenge too, because then you feel it so deeply in you, and you just feel like you have to. And so with James in particular, like I said, there was a confrontation I was having with him. And I'm just going to be honest. Anytime I pick a character or anytime that I do a part, all I want, honestly, is for the audience at some point to turn off their television or to leave the theater and then just have a moment and go, I wonder if he's okay. Like Brian and the character, honestly, I'll take both. But like, I really want that kind of compassion. I want people, because I think about me when I've seen certain things and I'll go home and I'm brushing my teeth and I'm like, damn, is he good? I wonder if he's good. Like, who do I talk to? And that just means that there's something that happened. There's a visceral shift inside of you that becomes bigger than you, and you care about something and somebody more than you at that moment. And if it's even a person on a screen, because I find that most of my characters with some of my audiences, they've never seen these men before. They've never even interacted with these men before, but these men exist. And so I want to make sure that people have a little bit of compassion for them at the end of the day.
Are you able to you take them home with you, they stay with you. Are you able to say goodbye to them?
Finally, yes. I've learned, I have talked, I have gone to therapy, I have journaled, I have burned sage, I own Palo Santo. I've done every ritual that any person could do, and all of you should too, because it really is just a testimony to to them, and to yourself, because look, we all walk around with wounds that we're trying to cover up. We all do it. We're doing it right now. And that's why Causeway was so important to me, because I was like, what happens when you meet someone or walk in this world and somebody can see your wounds and somebody can give you some salve and go, put that on. And then someone can go, all right, let's go get a burger. Like, I got you. They can see past all that. They can just see past all that. And I think it was truly a gift what this movie was, because there was a recognition that happened where it saw me before I saw it, and not the other way around. And I was able to just be seen and be present and be still, where I got to really like lay the burden down. Especially, there's a scene, the pool scene, for example, was very challenging for two reasons. One, Jen is a cold-blooded human being, and by that I mean she's cold all the time. And so we filmed this in the middle of the summer, and it was 99, 100 degrees outside, and she had the pool temperature at 98.6, which is the temperature of your fucking human body, okay? And I'm trying to do what I have to do in this scene. I was like, you gotta act quick, because it's soup, you're in soup. But then there was something that kind of, talk about surrender. There's this moment that I realized that I was about to expose myself. I was about to expose myself in this pool. Like, she asked this man who basically, born and raised in New Orleans, has no business probably in this neighborhood. Technically, they're breaking and entering. He's about to strip himself bare and get in this pool with this white woman. And that also involves him taking off this leg and really exposing what that is, and then getting in this pool. And I call it the baptism scene because, with baptisms, it's usually you're going to wash your sins away. You get dunked and then you come out a brand new person. And we all know at the end they all sin again. But the essence of washing away, what water can do to purify, there's something very spiritual about it, and so he gets in and he's weightless. He doesn't have to feel like he has to do. And then this moment happens that switches on a dot, and then he can't escape quickly. So now he has to swim to the ledge, get out with one leg, pull himself up. There was no easy escape. And I remember that being one of the first Lila squats, because I was frustrated. I was like, I just want to go. Can't I just pick up my leg and just fucking leave? Like, why? This just doesn't. And I realized that in essence is grief. That in essence is loss. That is guilt. There's usually no easy way to get out. But the fact that you just showed up and exposed yourself in the first place was a path to the healing and a path to the cleansing. And yeah, so all that to say is, most of the times I don't try to use these projects as therapy. You should never use them as therapy, ever. But it gave me a place to surrender. It gave me a place to feel truly exposed, because like, once you're exposed, there's nowhere to hide. And I think that I really needed to feel and see that. And I wanted to show that as well.
You mentioned earlier that you didn't want to obviously follow around amputees and things like that, but was there a period of research, and if so, what kind of research did you do for this part? And also, do you like doing research? Is that something that you kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. You get a character, and I'm like, well, does he eat peanut butter cups or not? Like, it's fun. It's fun stuff to really figure that out and to live as somebody else for a little bit, but I found with this one, there were a few things that I had to release, because like I said, I didn't want to go in judging James, but there were things that kind of got to me. So I remember asking Lila if we could go and see a prosthetic doctor, like a doctor who makes prosthesis. And so in New Orleans, there's one place, there's one doctor's office, and I think you all know what these doctor's offices are like. Like there's like a screen door. The carpet is from 1978. There's dust. There's like, certificates from like a frisbee tournament and shit. And I was like, oh, so this is the dude. Like, this is the dude who does the prosthetics of this town, which means that this is somebody that James knows. And this is probably the place that James came. And I went in and sat with him, and I was like, can you just walk me through, like, what goes into? And he's like, well, are you above the knee or below the knee? And I'm like, well, he's below the knee. He's like, okay, well, this is what goes on. And he was just very, very to the point about it, because he does it. He does it every day. That's the crazy part. Is like, oh, you do this every day. And so then once I discovered that, it's a below the knee amputation, which means that there then has to be a certain kind of sleeve, because then what you want, you're not worried about the bend of your knee. You're just worried about it looking like a shin. Sorry, and what goes with that is just a metal rod and what you can afford also. And I was like, well, he's on a mechanic salary. So, and he made me pick what I thought would be the best thing. And I was like, this is shitty. Like, because at some point James had two legs, and now he's coming to this person that he probably thought he never needed. And this person's going to make me pick out which rod, and I can only pick the rod that I can afford. So you get this rod that you can afford, and he's like, okay, well, what color do you want your foot? And I was like, the color of my foot? The color of my foot. He's like, yeah, these are the different shades. And I was like, okay, all right, well, I think this one, well, are you a narrow foot? Are you I don't know. Like, I mean, like, you guys, like, and I was like, so I guess this means I can't wear socks anymore. I guess this means that. And he's like, well, you always have to clean it this way. And then, by the time I left there, Lila saw me, and I was defeated. I was just like, this is my life now. It's like, this is James's life now. How many times has he walked past this doctor's office? How many times has he done? How many times, this doctor probably brought his car to James to get fixed, and now you got to pick out what kind of metal, what color foot, and like, it was just like, so so that's where research can take you sometimes, but it also gave me just a sense of longing for James to find that normalcy again. When I watched the scenes with Lindsay going to her doctors, and I was like, well, James probably went to these same doctors, and, I always had to come at it from a place of similarity, what she was going through, and how I could reflect that in her, how I could, when you grieve, right, it's easy to have friendships that are in celebration. It's really easy to have your homegirl or your homeboy be like, let's turn up, let's do it. But like, when you lose somebody, the friendship becomes complete. There's no guidebook for that. And then it really shows you who your friends are. And I think for James, I think he wanted to be for Lindsay what he was missing when he was going through what he went through. Because I was very fortunate to have Lila next to me when I was sitting in there. But I was like, what if I had to do this by myself? Because he doesn't have his sisters. He doesn't have a sister. He doesn't have his nephew. His fiance is gone. Like, people actively chose to leave him. And I kind of compare him to the story about the man who's lashing himself for every sin he's ever done, playing the paying penance part. And I felt like that was where he was. And I just really wanted him to get to the other side at the end of the day. I really wanted him to know that, yes, this may be your life now, but the beginnings are truly the best part. Like, he could begin again. And that's what I really wanted to really look into.
I have a confession to make. And it's not a bad one, don't worry. Several months ago, and I've seen you in films and on TV for years now. Several months ago, I saw a film called Bullet Train that you were in. And I walked out of that film, and I swear to God, I said these words. I uttered the sentences. I didn't know Brian Tyree Henry was British. You are low-key a master of accents, and you're doing one here. And I just have to ask: Is there a secret to being able to do a great accent? Like, what's the?
I don't know. I don't know. I always think about authenticity when it comes to the showcasing of Black people. You know, like I always want to feel like your cousin or your neighbor or your dealer. It's because it's important. It's a relationship that is important. You know what I'm saying? Which comes with a certain kind of familiarity. Um, and anytime I'm doing a character, there's always somebody very close to me that is representative of that character that I draw from sometimes, that I kind of like, you know, like I say, I observe. I try not to interact. I observe. And I think my friends sometimes are like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you listening? What are you? But it's true. I just always want there to be some kind of connection to the person being somebody that you may know. Because then maybe you'll look at somebody who looks like him on the street a little bit different. Maybe you'll actually extend yourself to be a friend. Maybe you'll, but when it came to Bullet Train, I have too many Black British friends, and what I wasn't going to do is get hemmed up in the street by them because I sounded like shit. So there was a real intense study that went on because, you know, even with that, I just really wanted him to be authentic, honestly. I just wanted him to feel real. I wanted him, because, like, look, we all know when something is put on. We all know. We love film, we love TV, and we know. You just know. And I just didn't want in any of these characters, you know, even with Alfred in Atlanta, I was like, I know him. You know what I mean? I know who this dude is. My best friend. He's my best friend. Like, I know who this is. And I just always wanted these characters to truly feel like somebody you know. And that means that they must sound that way. They must move that way. Even more importantly, they must laugh that way. They must be joyous that way. I want them to always be someone that you, at the end of the day, are like, is he okay?
This will be my last question. What's next for you?
I want to say rest, but that's a lie. There's a few things down the pike. I have a project coming out with Ridley Scott very soon, which is going to be very exciting and terrifying at the same time. You know, I have this really great biographical film coming out called Flint Strong about Claressa Shields, who recently is the now undisputed female boxer of all time. Just big ups to her. Also, don't want her rolling up on me on the street. I didn't do it. And, you know, I have a series called Class of '09 that'll be coming out soon about the FBI. So there's a lot of different things and different colors coming up, but hopefully a nap is the next thing.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.